But here's the kicker. Dorian's assistant is none other than Abel Cuvier.
Okay, but will it canon?
I don't have time for this. We can't make this 2 videos in one right now. I've got to send out my Justice League vs. the Fatal 5 timeline notes in time for...
Maddie, I figured it out. Maddie?
Ugh. Ugh. What the hell just happened? Is this my laptop?
Will it canon? That is the question. Hello, Watchtower Database, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Will It Canon? The show where we take a look at a piece of DC Comics multimedia to determine whether or not it fits into Bruce Timm and Company's DC animated universe.
What is this?
You know, it's rude to interrupt. I don't do that to you.
Yes, you do. Wait, who are you?
What do you mean? It's me, James.
You look different.
Well, what do you know? Looks like time travel doesn't mix well with someone made up of ones and zeros. Huh, who knew?
Hold up. Time travel?
Oh, you haven't figured it out yet? Guess I'm too soon. Yeah, judging by the laptop's internal clock, I'd say you're about 40 years from now, whenever now is.
I'm what?
Now, can I please get on with my presentation? This bit is lasting way too long. Alright, cool, thanks. Today we're going to be examining the wonderful world of Earth-12. Or is it Earth Space 12? We'll get to that. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Earth-12 first appeared in showcase number 62 in May 1966, the homeworld of the super team, the Inferior Five, and just kidding. Earth-12 is just one of the many Earth designations, over 52 of them in fact in the current DC Comics multiverse, which was introduced in the weekly 52 series back in 2006 through 2007, but restructured and solidified in the 2014 to 2015 event The Multiversity by Grant Morrison. Earth number designations go back as far as 1963's Justice League of America number 21, with the multiverse in general being established back in 1961 with Flash of Two Worlds in The Flash number 123. But after several perplexing crisis this and crisis that, DC Comics currently finds itself following a relatively simple set of rules, numbering each existing reality as Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, and so on. Numbered Earths with hyphens were introduced in the 52 series, and the follow-up series, Countdown to Final Crisis, briefly featured a futuristic Batman in the iconic Batman Beyond batsuit on an Earth labeled Earth-12. Since this was the first appearance of Terry McGinnis Batman in mainstream comics since the finale of his animated TV show 7 years prior, it was easy to assume Earth-12 represented the DC animated universe. But over the years, things got really muddy. Sometimes Earth-12 stories were made out to be extremely obvious continuations of DCAU continuity, and other times they heavily contradicted it. In early 2008, Earth-12 appeared again in Countdown Arena, a tie-in miniseries that included an appearance by the Green Lantern of Earth-12, who was curiously not Cairo, the Green Lantern from the Batman Beyond animated series, but the grandson of Hal Jordan, named Hal Jordan II. We also saw a futuristic firestorm in Arena's first issue with both new characters flying over a Batman Beyond-like Gotham cityscape. We wouldn't see any Earth-12 appearance again until May 2010's Justice League of America Volume 2, number 43, merely a tiny cameo of Terry McGinnis among dozens of other universes. Earth-12 stories really picked up in the early 2010s with titles like Superman Beyond, Justice League Beyond, and of course, Batman Beyond, which all crossed over with each other and solidified the fact that Earth-12 was a continuation of the DCAU. Or was it? Before I get too deep into things, I should take a second to mention that before all of this, in 2005 we did get an appearance of a future Batman in the Batman Beyond costume in Superman, Batman 22 and 23. But this Batman would be revealed to be Tim Drake, seemingly from a diverging timeline via DC's Hypertime concept, an alternate future timeline of the at the time mainstream DC universe of Earth-0, or New Earth. The notion of a Tim Drake Batman Beyond wouldn't appear again for almost a decade, not until DC's 2014-15 event, Future's End, which saw the death of Terry McGinnis and Tim Drake taking over the mantle of Batman. But after the conclusion of Future's End, Terry was revealed to not be dead, hopped back in the Batsuit, and continues to be there to this day as we follow his Bat ventures in the current Rebirth era Batman Beyond title. But all of that's not Earth-12. Never was. Okay, back on track. In August 2010, the Superman Batman title, which took place in the main DC Comics continuity, released an annual titled A Time Beyond Hope. This issue was set in the not-so-distant future. But it honestly created more questions than answers. Terry McGinnis and Superman team up to fight a super old Lex Luthor, but since the last time we saw Luthor in the DCAU, he was being zapped to new God knows where with Darkseid. Was it even possible that this was the not-so-distant future, of DCAU, or Earth-0? Or was this another glimpse at Earth-12? To make things more confusing, this issue makes references to Rebirth, Batman Beyond's debut episode, and the episode The Call, which introduced the future Justice League. So what's the deal? Well, we'll get back to that later. Simultaneously, DC released the first issue of the limited series Batman Beyond by Adam Beechin, the first not specifically DCAU volume of Terry McGinnis adventures that spanned 6 issues, covering a short story called Hush Beyond. Though the series referenced plot points or characters from several Batman Beyond cartoon episodes and the Return of the Joker movie, it also treated mainstream DC comic stories as canon. Most notably, of course, Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb, but also indistinct callbacks to Calendar Man, Multiplex, Silver St. Cloud, and the No Man's Land comic arc, none of which apply to the DCAU that we know of. This Batman Beyond series led into another, in 2011, also by Adam Beechin, which was a direct follow-up to Hush Beyond. This comic, however, continued Beechin's trend of taking DC Comics comic book lore and DC Animated Universe lore and sort of mashing them together into a Play-Doh mountain of ambiguity. Early 1960s DC mythos met that of Tower of Babel and multiple Batman Beyond episodes. Batman Incorporated, The Outsiders, contradictory continuity for both Blight and Inque, two of Terry's most notable adversaries. This thing was all over the place. As Batman Beyond comic books continued to be released over the next few years, Beechin's run transitioned into the motherlode of Beyond titles. Superman Beyond, Batman Beyond, and Justice League Beyond, as well as the latter two's 2.0 continuations, ran concurrently from 2011 to 2014. Though all helmed by different writers and artists, these books coexisted, taking plot cues from one another and being heavily marketed as connected, often releasing on opposite weeks and/or urging the reader to pick up one of the other titles to continue the story. What made these titles interesting is that, pretty much across the board, they all strive to stick within the parameters of DCAU continuity, making a point to reference or flash back to events from episodes of Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, or even as far back as Batman the Animated Series. And this happened pretty damn often. Finally, March 2015 rolled around and DC's Multiversity Guidebook was released, officially cataloging each and every one of the 52 hyphenated Earths. Well, some are still mysteries, but the numbers are there anyway. Here, Earth-12 was represented by the Beyond era Justice League. This confirmed that everything we'd been reading in the Beyond titles the last few years was decidedly taking place on Earth-12. And then Convergence happened. Convergence was a DC miniseries with multiple tie-ins that ran over the course of a month from April to May of 2015, in which Brainiac did a bunch of multiverse and timeline-shattering nonsense that, long story short, wound up returning some old worlds and overriding some others to form an even newer 52 Earths. On a cosmetic level, these are virtually the same Earths they had been, but with a fresh coat of paint. And that's where we find ourselves now, Earths without hyphens. Or wait... The Green Lantern number 10 from 2019 has hyphenated Earth numbers, and so does Young Justice number 8. So is it hyphenated or not?
You're asking me?
I don't know. I'm asking anybody, I guess.
I'm the only one here.
Yeah, well, okay, sure.
You're the one explaining all of this. You don't know the answer?
Well, I thought I did, okay? Alright, so maybe sometimes they're hyphenated and sometimes they're not. Supposedly, Convergence removed the hyphen, but there it is. Maybe it's interchangeable. Maybe the writers of those newer comics got it wrong. Maybe there's another multiverse warping event coming up that'll put the hyphens back. I don't know. But what I do know is that Earth-12 or Earth Space 12 or whatever the hell it is isn't the DC Animated Universe. And here's why. They just won't go away. I know you just want a big list of every single thing that goes against DCAU canon. And you know what? Yeah, let's do that. I've already brought up a handful of the smaller continuity contradictions between the DCAU and Earth-12, but I'll go ahead and rattle off a quick list of them for you so we can move past them and get to the meat of this Beyond burrito. In Superman Beyond, various Superman iconography much more closely resembles that of its comic book or motion picture counterparts than the DCAU versions, like Lex Luthor's exosuit, the Fortress of Solitude, and its House of L statues, Jonathan Kent, the Daily Planet, Superman's supersuits, more than half of which are straight out of non-DCAU properties, and the Phantom Zone, which is depicted multiple times as a Richard Donner-like floating 2D square. We also got a handful of other surface-level contradictions like J'onn J'onzz using heat vision, despite Bruce Timm insisting the character doesn't have that power. General Zod's past existence, even though we never saw him in the DCAU besides this half non-canon Supergirl Adventures issue, and Impulse and Jay Garrick being among the Flash lineage, which contradicts what we think we know about Wally West's origin. And then there's the very small stuff, like Jon Stewart having the wrong haircut in some flashbacks, the wrong watchtower being present, and upside down, the existence of multiple bat armors, Etrigan speaking in rhymes, unlike his DCAU self, Amazo being kept in the Fortress of Solitude like a trophy, Cyborg's appearance in reference to having been a Justice Leaguer, and Red Star being just a recolored JLU Starman. Like, come on, did you even try with that one? But for argument's sake, these are all pretty weak. Things happen off screen all the time that we don't know about. That could explain a lot of this. Nothing in this section is too damning to completely separate this continuity from the DCAU. We don't know what happened to Amazo after JLU's Wake the Dead. Maybe Luthor had another exosuit we didn't see. Maybe Superman did have some of these suits between JLU and Batman Beyond. And perhaps, most importantly, stuff like wrong haircut or wrong watchtower can probably be put under the same category as wrong batsuit. So, but now, with all that out of the way, besides all the small stuff, there are definitely some, let's call them mid-tier arguments that are certainly harder to explain. Let's set this up like a debate. I'll be both teams. Point. In Superman Beyond, Solomon Grundy is alive and capable of intelligent speech, without explanation besides, yeah, Superman's been gone for a while, so things might be a little different now. Counterpoint. He's come back from the dead before. It's magic. It happens. We'll just cut that walking part out for the rest. Point. Barbara Gordon knows that Harley Quinn is alive, even though she clearly doesn't in Return of the Joker. Counterpoint. Could she not have learned afterwards? The Didi twins, having gone through the system, could have raised some flags. Point. Aquaman appears in Justice League Beyond, even though he supposedly is missing in this era. Counterpoint. Justice League Beyond could take place after that. Point. Wonder Woman is left for the Justice Lord's Earth, even though she's still active in the Beyond era, according to Static Shock. Counterpoint. Future Shock could take place after that. Point. Steppenwolf is alive even though he died in Twilight. Counterpoint. His death is off screen and according to Bruce Timm's supervillain death clause. Point. Bruce Timm has also specifically said that these comics are not canon to Batman Beyond. Counterpoint. He said that a lot of comics are not DCAU, but they work perfectly well. Point. Terry's parents are mentioned to have still been married when Warren was killed. Counterpoint. It's haha, point. Jared Tate is a child in Hush Beyond when he should be Terry's age. Counterpoint. Armory has another kid who has the same name. Point. The Gotham City Police Department is unaware of Venom, even though it was used in the Batman Beyond episode, The Winning Edge. Counterpoint. They, forgot. Point. Terry acts like he's never been to the Fortress of Solitude before, even though he definitely has in The Call. Counterpoint. He forgot? Jax ages in the Phantom Zone. Light said he was pinned under a boat instead of a submarine. Lex Luthor became president. Counterpoint.
Lex flippin' Luthor.
Before we get to the biggest headaches, there's one last thing I want to touch on. Lex Luthor. His arc in these comics is perhaps the most perplexing of anything I've come across while researching Earth-12. Not only does it not really work with established DCAU continuity, but oftentimes it even contradicts itself. Let me explain. Luthor first appears in this universe in that Superman-Batman annual I brought up earlier. He's alive, he's old, he used to be the president and the mayor of Metropolis. And at the end of the issue, Terry and Superman imprison him in the Phantom Zone. And yet, when he next appears in Superman Beyond, it's as an artificial intelligence, a computer program that manipulates the real Lex Luthor's future daughter. And that real Luthor confirmed to be dead by Bruce Wayne. So is he in the Phantom Zone or is he dead? Shouldn't he have been dead already via the end of Justice League Unlimited? Well, Darkseid was zapped away by the anti-life equation too, and according to JLU producer Dwayne McDuffie, both Luthor and Darkseid became a part of the Source Wall, among all those other Galactus-looking fellas. But Darkseid is alive in these comics too. He's alive when Aquagirl is born. He's alive when the League goes to Apokolips to try and stop a big snake monster. And we find out he's blind because he went to the Source Wall to access the anti-life equation with Highfather, and Highfather died. So Darkseid and Luthor escaped the Source Wall? I guess it would explain why he's back in jail when the League goes to fight the Justice Lords in this flashback, but let me see if I've got this straight. Luthor brings Darkseid the anti-life equation. Both get trapped as part of the Source Wall. They escape somehow. Luthor goes back to jail and Darkseid goes back to Apokolips. At some point, Darkseid and Highfather go back to the Source Wall to get the anti-life equation. Again? But Darkseid gets blinded and Highfather gets dead. Meanwhile, Luthor becomes president of the United States and then the mayor of Metropolis later. He grows older and older, making an AI of himself to achieve immortality of sorts until he's finally being trapped in the Phantom Zone by Batman and Superman, and then left for dead. Oh, McDuffie did also say they escaped the Source Wall. Maybe this all actually does make sense once you lay out all the pieces and put them in the right order. Well, look at that. My bad. Well, it's still really confusing. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Why exactly is Earth-12 definitely not the DCAU? Well, because of this stuff. We've already done a whole video about this. I'm not gonna waste your time. Jason Todd doesn't exist in the DCAU, and yet here he is in Batman Beyond 2012 number 11. And no, this Ty Templeton designed Jason Todd BTAS style action figure doesn't count. If it did, so would Skydive Batman, and Radar Scope Batman, and Lightning Strike Batman. All right, those are pretty cool. Okay, Warhawk, son of Green Lantern John Stewart and Hawkgirl. As we learn in JLU's The Once and Future Thing, you know, the episode that's all about an alternate Batman Beyond timeline where everything's been screwed up by Kronos. At the end of that episode, Batman and Green Lantern are the only ones who remember what happened, and yet, here in Warhawk's origin story in Justice League Beyond number 7, he says John met me for the first time, not an alternate timeline version of me, as if Warhawk somehow either remembers these events or is the same Warhawk from those events, neither of which should be the case. This origin story also references the Rann-Thanagar War, which if in DCAU continuity would be happening around the time of Justice League versus the Fatal Five. We don't see this war happening during that movie, but we do know 3 things. 1, Hawkgirl is on Thanagar. 2, Green Lantern is on Rann. And 3, the Dominators are also on Rann. But in this version, the Dominators aren't involved and Thanagar is occupied by the Gordanians. And timeline-wise, in this comic, John Stewart's ring is taken away from him by the Guardians after he kills Shadow Thief. So this can't happen before Fatal 5 or else John would have no purpose being on Rann, and it can't happen after Fatal 5 or else everything Adam Strange is telling them about the war would be information they already know. It just doesn't make sense, okay? On the subject of Thanagar, Hawkman is a big part of these Rann-nanigans. Despite the DCAU Carter Hall having been an Earth archaeologist with a Hawkgirl fetish, this Earth-12 story suggests that he was among the Thanagarians when the Gordanians took over their world after Star-Crossed, and was among the refugees who sought shelter on Rann. He's even strung up like Jesus and gets his wings torn off, but his wings were never organic. He literally puts them on like a weird feathery backpack in JLU. So none of that lines up with how he's portrayed in the DCAU, other than the fact that Shadow Thief still comes out of him as though the JLU stuff is intact. Yeesh, these people really had a hard time keeping track of their own continuity. last but certainly not least, we have the Joker. As you should know, if you're watching this video and give one single crap about anything I'm saying, the Joker died in the flashback from the Batman Beyond Return of the Joker movie. Over the course of various timeline videos, we've narrowed down this point in the DCAU to be somewhere between September 2005, the end of Justice League versus the Fatal Five, and somewhere in the year 2007, the latest possible year to line up with old Tim Drake's almost 40 years comment in Return of the Joker. However, in Hush Beyond, we get info that Bruce caught the Joker and retired soon after. His retirement as Batman being locked canonically as June 21st, 2019. If you'll notice, that is several years past the Joker's death, not soon after. Nightwing also confirms that, at this time, Batman hadn't worked with a partner in years, despite him swinging around Gotham with his Batgirlfriend. Strangely enough, though, this same story confirms something similar to the events of Return of the Joker did happen, as Tim Drake recollects having once had the Joker take over his body. And later, in the 2012 Batman Beyond title, we learn Barbara Gordon has Wayne Powers' legs, which alludes to Killing Joke-like events having occurred in this universe. This would all suggest that in Earth-12 continuity, the Return of the Joker flashback played out a bit differently than in the DCAU, with Joker perhaps escaping instead of being killed, to live on into Bruce's final years as Batman, and with Barbara's involvement perhaps being different than how we saw in the animated movie. However, Batman Beyond 2.0 and Justice League Beyond both insinuate that the Return of the Joker flashback did happen how we saw it on the screen, with a literal flashback sequence of the Joker being buried, and Terry mentioning it's been 50 years since those events, which doesn't even line up right anyway. Later on in Batman Beyond 2.0 number 34, it seemed they tried to retcon the Joker Nightwing flashback out of existence by having Terry not even know how Dick lost his eye, even though it clearly happened when Joker, shot him in the face. But 2.0 still has callbacks to other events from that earlier Batman Beyond run, specifically the 10,000 Clowns arc, which is also a problem because if Barbara has Wayne Powers' legs, she would have been disabled until the merger between Wayne Enterprises and Powers Technology. So how was she Batgirl during the Return of the Joker flashback? Did she go through some other leg trauma that isn't Killing Joke related? None of this makes any sense. And in the end, does it even matter? Since Barbara and Dick supposedly never talked about their relationship after Dick quit as Robin. And in these comics, they clearly did. Look, this was a lot of information. I get it. But even after all this contradictory nonsense, Superman Beyond references DCAU episodes Rebirth and The Call. Batman Beyond and its 2.0 spin-off treat the events of On Leather Wings, Fear of Victory, Dead Man's Hand, Once Burned, Out of the Past, Shadow of the Bat, A Better World, Batgirl Returns, Blackout, and of course Rebirth again as canon material. The Justice League Beyond comics drive the A Better World lore home even further, as well as take cues from Legacy, Destroyer, Injustice for All, Starcrossed, The Enemy Below, Mind Games, and Return of the Joker. On top of all that, with the release of these comics, we got new information that filled in some of the missing gaps between JLU and the Beyond era. How Mr. Fix got his eye scar, Flash and Nightwing teaming up against Mr. Freeze, and everyone's favorite, Bad Girl pregnancy story. And after the release of the multiverse map, we found that opposite the Earth-12 reality was Earth-50, the Justice Lord's universe, which seemed to fall in line with the polar opposite nature of the worlds in the Justice League cartoon. Interestingly though, when you look up Earth-50 on the DC Comics website, its first appearance is listed as one of these comics. Now you'd think this would mean that DC's website catalogs only comic books, but nope. Earth-16's first appearance is listed as the Young Justice cartoon. So is this official confirmation that these aren't the same Justice Lords? Or am I just thinking too hard about this? It's probably that last one. It's very safe to say that the DCAU heavily influenced the storytelling of the Earth-12 Beyond world, but they had plenty of problems syncing up with the cartoon continuity as well. This isn't the first time this has happened in comics either. The 1997-98 series Adventures in the DC Universe takes place more or less in mainstream continuity, but clearly uses Bruce Timm character designs from the DCAU. Wait, so could Adventures in the DCU be Earth-12? Past Multiversity, Earth-12 has only had a handful of cameo appearances among other titles so far, not any of its own. So it remains to be seen where this new multiverse will take us in terms of new and exciting mind-melting canonicity shenanigans. To be honest, it seems pretty clear, to me anyway, that Earth-12 or Space-12 or whatever is very much not the DC animated universe. But it's a universe obviously inspired by it, and the writers behind Earth-12 stories have clearly done their best to incorporate and adhere to DCAU continuity. But when all is said and done, there's just too much going against the idea to say matter-of-factly that Earth-12 and the DC animated universe are one and the same. They're not. It is, however, possible that the history of both universes could be traced back to a single point of diversion, much like the Kelvin timeline in Star Trek. If you don't get the reference, first of all, go watch Star Trek 2009, you uncultured swine. But I'm talking about the possibility of something happening within the DCAU that caused a new timeline to branch off, effectively creating Earth-12. Sure, it's more likely that Earth-12 is simply a DC Comics universe that bears a striking but different enough resemblance to the DCAU. But this way is more fun. There are hints to this idea whether the creators intended them or not. Little things that barely contradict DCAU continuity to the point where it could be just evidence of things happening, well, a little bit differently. Aquaman is shown to be wearing his classic orange top during the events of the Enemy Below, pointing to the dude making a mildly different fashion choice. Devil Ray is still alive years after his death in JLU's Dead Reckoning, so perhaps this never happened. Dick Grayson says his old college roommate was named Brian Waters, when it was Brian Rogers in Batman the Animated Series. The Berenstein subtleties are there. There's also the dark multiverse version of this universe, Earth-12, which was seen in Batman the Merciless, part of 2018's Dark Knight's Metal event. Earth-12 showcased very DCAU-looking versions of Wonder Woman, Ares, and the Justice League in general, along with a seemingly Batman the Animated Series inspired Batman who shared a romance with Diana, which if anything helps solidify the design elements of the positive Earth-12's past, as both multiverses echo each other prior to, well, everything turning upside down, pun intended, in the Dark Worlds. And again, the current Batman Beyond comics in DC's Rebirth line. Those ain't Earth-12, hyphen, nor space, nor little kind of hyphen that apparently means negative. With flashbacks to the New 52 era Bat family and a very much alive Joker, that's pretty conclusive. But whatever the case, you can stop being confused about whether Earth-12 is the DCAU or not. It's not, and it never was. It could be an alternate timeline, it could be an unaffiliated comic book universe. We don't know. We even see Reverse Flash in a lineup of past Flash rogues, so maybe all of this is just his fault. Does that all make sense, Maddie? Maddie? Maddie?
Huh? What? What? Oh. Yeah, I knew all of that already. I took notes on a ton of that stuff for James. I mean, the real James.
Let's not even get started with that.
Hey, wait a second. You said we're in the future, right?
Yeah, I did the whenever now is joke and everything.
Hold the phone. That means there's probably a future me running around here somewhere.
He might even know the way to get home. Where can I find him? Or me, I guess.
No clue, man.
Then we must depart. Adventure is out there.
Do you even know where you're going?
Not at all.
Hey, I forgot to mention, I left a reading order of all the Earth-12 comics in the description below this video. I know it's pretty confusing, and it took me a lot of digging before I could really understand it, so I can guess it'd be helpful for anyone watching this to know just how it all goes together.